So you're here because your teacher made you read Raymond's Run by Toni Cade Bambara. That's alright. I'll help you out as much as I can here on this sticky, icky series we call Simply Lit. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're able, as that is a huge help to me and helps me be able to keep helping you. And if you'd like to donate to my educational audio career, please do so at the links in the video description. After the video, ask me any questions that you think will help you understand the story better and get that homework done. Also, comment to make requests for videos on other lit literature. Or comment to commiserate about your last-minute homework assignment with your peers. Or comment just to boost that sweet, sweet engagement algorithm for me. Here's how this one is going to go. I'm going to analyze as I summarize. So I'll give you a little bit of summary, followed by an analysis of what that part of the story is getting at. Now enjoy this brief summary and analysis of Raymond's Run by Toni Cade Bambara. The story is narrated by Hazel Parker, known as Squeaky because she's slender and young and scrappy as heck. But she doesn't like that nickname, so don't call her that if you know what's good for you. The central tension and situation in the story is about how Hazel has to take care of her older brother Raymond because it is strongly implied that he has a cognitive or mental disability. She cares for and looks out for Raymond, all while continuously training for her running races. People refer to Raymond as Hazel's little brother because of his disability, despite the fact that he's older and bigger than her. The climax shows Hazel learning to think more about her brother's future instead of just her own, giving up her competitive running in order to start training Raymond for running. This happens after she wins a May Day race, and she notices Raymond mimicking her running and absolutely slaying it, even running with his own distinct flair. Raymond shows himself to be a running rock star by the end of this story. Hazel bases a lot of her identity on running, so it's a big deal when she decides to give running up and pursue other passions in order to train Raymond as a runner. And again, that's at the end of the story. Not too much actually happens in this story in terms of plot, but so much is happening beneath the surface that makes the story rich. Basically, it's all about Hazel practicing running, analyzing relationships and neighborhood dynamics, verbally smacking down those who bully Raymond, and winning a race despite an authority figure asking her to throw the race. The story takes place in Harlem. This city setting lies in contrast to the inner landscape of Hazel Mines, a landscape she enters when she runs, that of a beautiful beachfront countryside that she once lived in. And so the act of running is integral to setting and place, metaphorically speaking, because running takes Hazel somewhere both physically and metaphorically. When I run, I just visualize myself in the ER because I'm getting old and overweight, so there's that to look forward to, Gen Z. There's also the implication of socioeconomic class dynamics in this Harlem city setting. Though by the end of the story, one might argue that Hazel learns to appreciate her setting all the more, and perhaps we might speculate that she doesn't need to retreat to her mind palace, so to speak, of this countryside that she once lived in and longs for. Maybe it's implied that she's happier where she is than she realized. In terms of another theme of this story, gender roles and expectations also play into the story. Hazel's parents, for example, want her to be more ladylike so much that they're a little embarrassed of her for not behaving like a lady, quote-unquote, should. But Hazel really doesn't care about any of that because she don't play that gender binary opposition BS. And so without her parents' support to be who she truly is, Hazel knows she needs to be the best and baddest young person because she's the one who needs to stick up for herself and her brother because no one else is gonna. And taking care of Raymond is a job her parents have given her anyway, whether she likes it or not. Though Hazel also knows when to hold them and when to fold them, and will use her extreme running prowess to run away from a fight or a conflict if she needs to. Perhaps initially she doesn't like her role as Raymond's day-to-day guardian as much, but by the end of the story she has genuine excitement for her relationship with Raymond going forward. I mean, good for them. I can't even get my little brother to answer my texts. If you're listening, please text me. I need to spill the tea on all the hot literature goss. One day Hazel is on a jog doing breathing exercises for running, and again running is one of her greatest sources of joy and release. Run, Hazel, run. Raymond trots with her all the while she trains for running because people are likely to bully Raymond if he gets left behind. But sometimes he pretends he's a circus performer and often gets his pants, his shoes wet when he steps off the curb and into the gutter. Then Hazel is the one who gets hit as a punishment for Raymond being messy when they return home. Different times for sure. I myself used to get hit with a spatula or a belt when I didn't have as much care for my brother as I should have. Let us take a moment for our collective trauma. Raymond also often upsets the neighbors by making a commotion chasing pigeons. Hazel looks after him and apologizes for him often, but she doesn't mind looking after Raymond as long as he doesn't interrupt her breathing exercises or training. Our girl's gotta breathe uninterrupted. I had to watch my brother when we were younger too, but Hazel does a much better job than me as I busted my brother's head wide open one day while playing wrestling. As good old JR would have said in the moment, "Good God Almighty, he is broken in half!" But my brother's fine. There's an interesting contrast of characters in the idea of showing off versus being proud versus the idea of playing it cool, so one seems to act and perform effortlessly. Hazel is proud of her hard work and she unabashedly trains in public. She wants her competition to know she's coming and she don't mess around. This attitude is set in contrast to her schoolmate Cynthia, who pretends everything comes effortlessly and naturally to her, but Hazel sees through that facade. Catch her outside with that BS. Hazel doesn't care that training in public embarrasses her mom either. As far as everyone else knows, Hazel is the fastest person in the neighborhood, certainly faster than Gretchen, another of Hazel's schoolmates, the new girl, who's been bragging that she's going to win the first place medal in the race this year. But Gretchen has got another dang thing coming if she thinks she's going to beat Hazel. Her disapproval of Gretchen also hints at how girls feel socially pressured to compete with each other and assert their dominance in the role of binary opposition and toxic competition. While Hazel does her breathing exercises, she sees Gretchen and Gretchen's friends Mary Louise and Rosie, who Hazel refers to as Gretchen's sidekicks, walking up the street. Hazel and Mary Louise used to be friends. Hazel even warded off bullies for her, but now Mary Louise chooses to show her lack of gratitude by talking smack to Hazel and Raymond. Rosie is mean to Raymond as well, although Hazel has some choice thoughts about Rosie's lack of fitness and how she should not be one to talk. Hazel considers walking into the store to avoid Gretchen and company, but she decides that she has a reputation to consider, that she has to be tough, and so Hazel is ready to throw hands. However, this mean streak seems in part to be a front, as Hazel would rather run and hide in that moment. While the girls are talking smack to Raymond and Hazel, Mary Louise and Rosie taunt Hazel about how she is going to lose the upcoming May Day race, but Hazel knows that they're just echoing what Gretchen told them to say. As Gretchen flashes a fake smile, Hazel thinks that girls never really smile at each other, because she has also noticed that in her world, adult women also don't smile genuinely at each other, thinking this is why young women and girls like her don't smile, because there's no one, including adult women, to teach them how to smile genuinely at their female peers. Hazel's insight suggests that the issue of cattiness and competitiveness is widespread among adult women and girls in the community, and perhaps at large in our broader culture. In this light, perhaps Gretchen and her crew can be seen as somewhat sympathetic, still as they really don't know any better. They're just following the plot and perpetuating a social norm in their cruelty to Hazel and Raymond. Regardless, Hazel isn't having it. Because maybe Hazel will be the one to change that, and it's implied later that she might be the one to change this culture of not smiling at each other and not being genuine and of being overly catty and competitive and toxic. Mary Louise and Rosie bully Raymond, but Hazel tells them to shut their dang mouths before she shuts them for them. Gretchen tries to look tough, but she just got served, so has nothing to say, and so she and her disingenuous entourage choose to leave. Raymond and Hazel feel grateful for each other in the moment and continue with their routine down the street. Hazel just wants people to let her and Raymond be themselves and walk in peace. On May Day, Hazel takes her time getting to the park since the track meet is the last event of the day. She's like the sunglasses face emoji, just chillin'. The main attraction of the celebration is the May pole dance, which is an odd title in a modern context, but whatever. This is a more feminine-oriented activity, which again is a weird name for it, even more than. Hazel's mother wishes Hazel would participate in it. This is again because her parents wish she would act more traditionally feminine. But Hazel is adamant that she doesn't want to wear fancy clothes and dance around pretending to be a fairy. She's more interested in being herself, and she notes that part of her identity is being a poor black girl who can't really afford new clothes, but who just wants to be authentically herself, a smart girl and a fast runner. She doesn't want anything to do with gender roles, and this hurt she feels at this pressure to conform to them potentially also contributes to her outwardly tough attitude in resistance to these antiquated social norms. Hazel remembers a time where she did play to social and parental expectations, playing a dancing strawberry in a nursery school production of Hansel and Gretel, feeling ridiculous just so that her mother and father could watch proudly. But Hazel isn't a dancer. She's a runner, and she is totally over all that nonsense. When Hazel arrives late to the May Day program, she puts Raymond in a swing and looks around for her teacher, Mr. Pearson, who pins the race numbers on. Hazel, all the while, is keeping an eye out for Gretchen because she wants to beat her and wants her to know she's going to beat her, though she doesn't see her anywhere in the crowded park. This instant again emphasizes the focus on toxic competitiveness. Eventually, Mr. Pearson bumbles over to her on stilts, dropping things clumsily. Mr. Pearson greets Hazel by her nickname, Squeaky, so she corrects him that her name is Hazel Elizabeth Deborah Parker, as she really isn't fond of people addressing her by her nickname of Squeaky if she doesn't give them permission to. She will not stand for it if she thinks someone is trying to belittle her, even if it's an authority figure like Mr. Pearson. Even though the May Day race is incredibly important to Hazel, her parents are nowhere to be found. Hazel is hurt by their absence and feels sad and unappreciated that they put so much pressure on her supporting Raymond while not supporting her. This is yet another potential reason for Hazel's outwardly tough attitude, a defense mechanism from the emotional hurt. Mr. Pearson implies that Hazel should purposely lose the race this year to give other girls a chance to win, since Hazel always wins, particularly since Gretchen is a new girl and since there's only 6 people in the race. Towards this implied and absurd proposal, Hazel sardonically thinks that this is ridiculous, because it's not her fault all the girls of the city and state didn't show up for the race. Hazel just gives Mr. Pearson a deadly stare and stomps away after pinning on her lucky number, 7. She thinks that adults sure are forward and rude sometimes. Hazel goes to lie down in the grass next to the track, imagining that she's back in the country instead of the concrete jungle of the city. This instance with Mr. Pearson and these other social pressures Hazel feels also align with Hazel's daydreams, where she feels out of place in this concrete jungle of interpersonal toxicity, where she lives, and so she longs to go back to the countryside, where she thinks things are more simple. This daydreaming also aligns with her acting all tough, to protect herself from this feeling out of place. After the younger groups run the 20, 30, and 40-yard dashes, Hazel and Gretchen take their places at the starting line for the 50-yard dash. Hazel sees Raymond on the other side of the fence, mimicking the runner's crouched positions. But Hazel doesn't shout at him to quit, because as an expert runner, she knows hollering wastes precious energy. She's also emotionally exhausted from the unfair responsibility of looking after him all the time, so she can't be, understandably, bothered in this moment. Whenever Hazel is about to run a race, she feels like she's in a fever dream, and honestly, me too, girl, but for me it's because I'm an aging millennial. She feels like she's soaring over a beach, and she smells apples like the ones that grew near her former home in the countryside. She feels herself getting lighter and lighter until she crouches over the starting line and comes out of the daydream and is back in the moment. Present again, she pumps herself up, telling herself that she has to win because there's no one faster than her. She even posits that she could even beat her father, who is thus implied to be faster than her typically if she really tried. This moment is essentially the culmination of the running theme in the story, where running speaks to the different dimensions of Hazel's character. She uses running to show off and impress her peers and the community, and running is a form of escape for her too. Escape from the toxic competition and social pressures. Yet, at this point in the story, Hazel is still overly focused on winning and maintaining her reputation. And so she makes these surface desire goals her number one priority mentally and physically, in effect preventing the escape from all this conflict that she desires so much. The race gun goes off, and Hazel flies past everyone else and tunes out the world around her. She sees Gretchen to her right. But then she sees quite the sight. Raymond keeping pace with the racers on the other side of the fence, running in his own style with his arms at his sides and his hands behind him. You know, kind of like a Naruto style. Hazel is so surprised, never having seen Raymond actually run, and he's running so fast and so gracefully, that she almost loses her focus. She almost stops and watches Raymond on his very first run because she's so awestruck and impressed. But instead, she stays focused on the finish line. This moment of seeing Raymond run is super important for Hazel. She wants to win the race so bad, it's her number one goal, but when she sees Raymond running, not for public approval, not for competitiveness, but just for the joy of it, she's inspired to potentially try to take this lesson with her in the future. And the lesson is that she should do things not because people expect her to, or because she's got a reputation to maintain, or do it for awards, or because she's worried about what people will think of her, but instead she begins to realize that she should do things because she loves to do them. She should do things for joy, and because she wants to do them, just like Raymond ran out of sheer joy, imitating his role model, his sister Hazel. It's implied that she will apply this lesson to her life. Then, just as a race announcer says, "In first place," the loudspeaker cuts out with the voices of a few people arguing over who won. Hazel sees that Gretchen crossed the finish line very closely with her. Hazel, seeing how hard Gretchen worked in the race and noticing Gretchen's pro breathing technique, makes Hazel start to think that she might actually like Gretchen a little for the first time. On the loudspeaker, Mr. Pearson argues with the announcer and a few other men about the times on the stopwatch, while Hazel and Gretchen look at each other, wondering who actually won. It's of important note that Hazel's warming up to Gretchen comes after seeing Raymond's run, implying that her care and admiration for Raymond, for someone other than herself, is making her a better version of herself, one that's supportive of, and can admire and support others, even those in direct competition with her like Gretchen. While Hazel awaits a decision and warms up to Gretchen, Hazel suddenly sees Raymond climb over the fence. She admires how gracefully he scales the fence, thinking about how graceful and agile he also looked while running. She thinks Raymond could actually become a great runner, reflecting on how he knows how to breathe purposefully as he breathes in measured counts at the dinner table, annoying everyone. The implication is, of course, that Raymond learned how to breathe in counts from Hazel. She also reflects on how he always keeps up with her when she practices running around town. With that in mind, Hazel realizes that it doesn't matter if she won the race against Gretchen, because she can retire as a runner and become Raymond's coach instead. She also realizes that her whole identity doesn't have to rely on her tough reputation and being the best runner around, because she knows she could reach her full potential in many other arenas. For example, she recognizes that she could do things outside of running, like beating her schoolmate Cynthia at the spelling bee, or becoming an expert piano player if she convinced her mom to get her lessons. She also realizes that she has tons of medals and awards in her room, while wondering what Raymond has to call all his own, implying she wants to help him earn his own awards and help him carve out his own space in the world. Hazel realizes Raymond has been left out of living his life to the fullest because she's been too focused on showing her peers who is boss. She's no longer motivated by just being the best and beating others like Gretchen and Cynthia, but that instead, she wants to better herself and help raise others up. Hazel thinks she might even give up racing so she doesn't feel that nagging pressure to keep up her image of unwavering strength and success, to keep up her reputation. This series of reflections and realizations again emphasize that Hazel's perspective has shifted. In essence, this is when Hazel's character arc comes full circle, starting out more self-centered and competitive, and ending more other-centered, while still caring about herself and having a more supportive attitude. She tries to raise herself and others up rather than trying to stand on top at the cost of others. Hazel is ready to explore her other interests outside of running and help Raymond become his best and happiest self. Hazel is so happy to see Raymond and so happy with all these revelations and future plans that she jumps with excitement as Raymond climbs the fence and runs to her. She knows Raymond will be a badass runner just like her and their dad. So who do you think won the race? Hazel, of course. Was there ever any doubt? She's the fastest girl around, even when she's maybe done with racing. Can't best Hazel. Don't even try. The judges announce that Hazel came in first and Gretchen in second. The crowd congratulates Hazel. The attendees and onlookers think that Hazel is jumping up and down from excitement with Raymond because she's won the race. But really, she's jumping up and down because she's just so happy for what the future holds for her and Raymond. Hazel pauses to look over at Gretchen, recognizing Gretchen is a good runner and that Gretchen could even help her coach Raymond. Hazel smiles at Gretchen, and Gretchen nods and smiles back to Hazel as an implicit congratulations. Hazel thinks that the smile Gretchen gives her is as genuine and sincere of a smile as a girl can manage, calling back to the thought that girls don't usually practice real smiling. She thinks that maybe girls are preoccupied with being fairies or strawberries instead of being something honest and worthy of respect, like being people. And so, it's implied that this toxic cycle of feminine competitiveness is starting to be broken down with this newfound potential friendship between Gretchen and Hazel. Therefore, the story ends on a positive note, with Hazel ready to take on the future and practice smiling genuinely to receive smiles genuinely, supporting her fellow girls in her community just like she'd like to be supported, with Raymond running by her side. And that's it for now, y'all. There's plenty more to analyze in this story than what I've just mentioned. I'm just going to go do some cardio and try not to pass out. I'll see you next time if I make it back from Michael's run. If you have any requests for short stories or poetry summaries and analyses, please let me know in the comments. Wishing you all a good day and good luck with your homework. Feel free to ask me any questions related to your homework that you think I can help with. Please like and subscribe if you'd be so kind. Stay lit and be kind to your rivals and yourself, and you'll be the real winner with Simply Lit.